Chapter 3. Cleanse this world of its unrighteousness. We're home, Grandmother Kang announced as soon as the car stopped at their destination and Daniel was able to relax. This box, called a car in this world, was their mode of transportation and was much faster and more comfortable than the carriages used in the past. But then, throughout the ride, Daniel had frozen up, as he wasn't used to being in one. He was a monk who avoided such luxury and walked a lot more than the average human does in their lifetime. Hence, now they had come to a stop. He was finally able to breathe. He would have to get used to this. However, almost immediately the door to the car was opened for him, and he looked at the chauffeur questioningly before noticing his grandmother step out of the car, and he did the same. But then his jaw dropped to the ground as soon as he stared at the beautiful mansion before him. This was his home? No, that was impossible. This must be heaven. Either that, or he was dreaming. So he pinched his thigh hard, and the pain made him aware that he was very much awake. "This is our house," he stammered, still looking at the beautiful, yet intimidating mansion. "Yes, it's your home," Grandmother corrected him. "It would belong to you once I leave this world." She kept him informed of the fact she didn't have much time in this world. But then, what was he going to do with all of this? Ah Hyuk was afraid of being carried away by this ostentatious lifestyle. Hence, he gradually approached the old woman with caution, aware of her fearful demeanor, aware that although her attitude had completely changed and she was no longer making any attempt at eye contact, honestly, the woman scared him for many reasons. Ah Hyuk was afraid that the woman could see through him and realize that he wasn't the real Daniel, and he has no idea of what she would do once she comes to that realization. What if they exorcise his soul? Or kill him? The monk had no idea those practices were no longer practical in this modern age. Moreover, who would believe his absurd story? Also, he was in a strange version of his past life. Would Grandma force him to do things against his faith? She was already forcing him to live the life of luxury. What else would he be forced to accommodate? Hence, the request on his lips died off as soon as he met the woman's austere look. She would kill him if he dared request being given his own quarters. That was much simpler than this. So he kept his mouth shut. As soon as Ah Hyuk stood by her side, the old woman looped an arm around him, and he jumped as if he was electrocuted. What's with these people and their touching freely? He would have a hard time getting used to that. Grandmother sighed upon seeing his reaction, yet she didn't force him. The doctor said he would return to himself with time, and she had faith. She simply gestured to the entrance, "Let's go." Grandmother Kang was the first to step in, and Ah Hyuk followed her carefully. He couldn't be too indifferent, else the woman suspected he wasn't the real Daniel. He had yet to adjust to this world, so he needed someone by his side to guide him, even though the ways of this world were strange. The place was spacious and clean, and the only place he could compare it to was the king's palace in his past life. Even at that, this one was more sophisticated with strange decorations. He had seen some of them at the hospital, but it was nothing compared to this one. And by strange decorations, Ah Hyuk was referring to the eye-catching modern chandelier, tufted settees, and heavy swag curtains, and the classic wall mural with a nature theme. Or was it the main foyer where twin stairs elegantly lead up to more bedrooms? Yes, Ah Hyuk has never seen anything like that. Even the king would be intimidated by such intricate designs. And speaking about the past, Hyuk couldn't help but wonder what happened to the queen after his death. Did the king forgive her after his sacrifice, or did he strip her of her title and privileges, exiling her, or did he still kill her in the end? The last thought chilled Hyuk. The queen can't die, not after her sacrifice. But at the same time, it would be nice if the queen came into this world. Then he would be able to find her and treat her better than the king ever did. If she was in this world, he would never let her suffer again. "You should go to your room and settle down," grandmother told him, and almost immediately a younger woman appeared in front of them, and she instructed her. "Take the young master to his room." "Yes, madam." Almost immediately the woman reached for the little bag slung over his shoulder. It contained the clothes he had used in the hospital. However, Yak wouldn't let her have it. What does she want with his clothes? But then the woman was quite resilient and pulled on the bag, and Hyuk pulled back while Grandma Kang watched this interaction with a furrow on her face. 3. The woman said. Has the grandson finally lost it? Why wouldn't he let the maid have his bag? Hego. She could feel a headache coming. Just let him be, Grandmother Kang bellowed when she couldn't watch their drama anymore. She put up her hand. Let him be, please. High much more than everyone else. Then the two men pushed past her and walked away hand in hand. And the maid gave up while Hyuk huffed, pressing the bag closer to his side. They wanted to treat him like a king. He wasn't one. It was even blasphemous to think of himself as one, and surely there must be another king in this world who deserved such respect instead. So he followed the maid, who grumbled about something like not letting her do her duty, or maybe he heard otherwise. He simply put a 10-meter space between the both of them. After all, she was a woman, and men and women shouldn't be seen too close together. Although that can't be said for this new world he found himself in. On his way back from the hospital, he glanced through the window and saw young people mingling together. Yes, men and women. How was that even possible? There were no boundaries anymore. The both of them climbed the stairs and passed through numerous rooms before the maid suddenly stopped at one and flung the door open dramatically. In you go, young master, she gestured for him to enter. Hyuk looked at her reluctantly and walked the little passage leading to the room. However, he hardly stepped in when his eyes rested on the posters of half-naked women in the room. At once, Hyuk screamed as if his throat was being slit. What in the name of righteous Budla was this? His eyes had sinned. Was this how the previous Daniel lived? He was shocked. But no worries. He, Hyuk, has come to stay, and he will cleanse this world of its righteousness. Chapter 4. Set of Rules to Follow. Exerciser therapist Jennifer Watt. Ish, when is he coming? Song Yen muttered as she stared down at the time on her cell phone. Her mother had set her up on this date, and though she was reluctant to do so, she was meeting the heir of the Kang Group, and they couldn't afford to offend them. Kang Group was one of the most powerful conglomerates in the country, hence it could be said that this was a huge privilege to even be on this date. However, the grandson, Yen signed, her date was running 15 minutes late. Fine, she would wait a few minutes more, and if he still doesn't show up, she'd leave. Surely Grandma Kang would not hold her accountable since her grandson didn't show up, and her grandson, though he didn't join in the group formerly, had been raising Kang's own internal demands. Ken cut the conversation short by saying, if not that their family wanted to sign a deal with the Kang family, she wouldn't have agreed to this date. After all, She had seen all the rumors concerning her grandson online. They even said he was gay. She shuddered upon thinking about it. Maybe it was a good thing if this date doesn't hold. Hence, Song Yen began a countdown to the moment she left this place. Just when a minute was left, she grabbed her bag, ready to go, when a shadow suddenly fell on her. "Song Yen?" a smooth voice asked. Brows furrowed, Song Yen looked up in the direction of the voice, only for her jaw to nearly fall to the ground. Debek. She was in love. He was so handsome. The media must be crazy, Song Yen muttered in her mind as she stared at the Adonis in front of her. With hair as dark as the night, it was professionally given a classic, slick-back look. But his most outstanding feature was his eye, as blue as the sky up there on this sunny morning. Her research wasn't wrong. Daniel was really of mixed blood. And God, he was so damn attractive. He could easily become a model with his perfectly proportionate body, but that was impossible, since he was an only child and had to take up his responsibility as the heir to Kangaroo. "Are you going somewhere?" Kung Daniel asked, upon seeing the way she held onto her purse. "Of course not," Song Yen lied at once, forcing her butt back down on the seat. "Why do you mean by leaving? This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with this big shot. She wasn't going to waste it. If things worked out between the both of them and they got married," Song Yen gasped internally, "it would be heaven on earth. Their family would become strong and climb up the social ladder." Luck was finally smiling at her. "I'm sorry that I arrived late," Daniel said, and bowed to her in apology, making her eyes go wide. No, it's fine." Song Yen stopped him at once. "I came late as well and didn't wait that long anyway," she lied through her teeth. Thus the once vexed Song Yen became docile at once. "Even at that, it's mandatory that I apologize to you, Miss Yan. That is what a real man does," he went ahead to say. 3. He's so humble and charismatic. Song Yen swoons inwardly. This man was definitely every woman's dream. But then, why would the media say such nasty things about him? "It's all right, Daniel, oops." She palmed her mouth at once. "I hope it's all right to call you that." Song Yen pretended to have made a mistake when she called him that intentionally. "Of course you can," Danelle told her with a polite smile. "In that case." She tugged her hair behind her ear, exposing her left side. Her mother told her that was her best feature. "You can call me Song Yan." Heard her name? "No, mi Song Yan is okay for me," Daniel said, and her face fell. "Oh, is that so?" Song Yan said with an awkward smile, yet one could see the quick flash of disappointment on her face. Fine, he wanted to play hard to get, then she was game. Unless this man was gay, she wasn't letting him go. "What do you want to eat?" Danielle was quick to change the conversation, picking up the menu from the table, having sensed the unease in the air. "You sound like what to eat?" Song Yen muttered, going through the menu. In no time, they made their order and were served their food. The both of them eat in awkward silence, and that made Song Yen uncomfortable enough that she decided to say something. "I'm sure you're curious about me." She wanted to intrigue him, only to get the disappointment of her life. "No, I'm not," Daniel said, to her shock. "When my grandmother set up this date, I did a search on you and found out everything I wanted to know." He hinted that he knew all he needed to know about her. At once, Song Yen shifted uncomfortably on her seat, Was this man plain stupid or downright annoying? Of course, she knew he had information on her. After all, it was common in their circle to know about one another. But then, he could have pretended otherwise to keep the conversation going. What kind of person was he? Is that so? Song Yan nodded, then pushed her food back. She was now down to business, having lost her appetite. Then you must know why I'm here today as well, she told Daniel, who stopped eating as well. My grandmother's hoping that things will work out between us and we can get married, Daniel said truthfully without hiding a thing. And you? What do you think? Do you agree with that? Song Yen wanted to know. Right now, she wrapped her arms across her chest and stared straight at Daniel, ready for his answer. She's my grandmother. I'll do whatever pleases her, Daniel told her. Sure then, let's give our relationship a try. A smile now crossed her lips. Although the man was kind of rigid, in the end she got what she wanted. This union would bring immense benefit to the Song family. Who knows, in the future, they might even merge their companies. Their future was bright. However, Daniel suddenly said, before we go ahead with that, there are a set of rules you have to follow for things to work out between us. What? Chapter 5, The 10 Commitments. Set of rules to follow? Song Yen muttered, having no clue what he was talking about. This was the first time she had heard of such a thing in dating, and though she wanted to question him, curiosity still took the best of her. Song Yan had dated a lot of men, but this was the first time she was seeing one who has rules for their relationship. It was like a breath of fresh air. It doesn't sound that bad. If only she knew. Hence she watched carefully as Daniel reached into the pocket of his suit and pulled out a paper properly folded into 4 parts. He handed it to her, and she received it from him with furrowed brows. She'd see what he's up to. However, no sooner had Song Yen gone through it than her jaw nearly dropped to the ground. What is this? Song Yan stuttered. This guy must be an idiot. No, he must be crazy to think that she'd follow through with one of those bullshit written on that paper. At once, Daniel began to explain. I'm a man of principles, and a man of my principles cannot follow the ways of the world, which is why I have set out to cleanse the world of its iniquities. Hereby, any woman by my side would have to share my vision, and sharing my vision means being a doer of the same rules. Whatever Daniel said at that moment sounded like blah 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 to Song Yan, but the man was nonchalant about her mood and continued to explain his rules without seeing the way her hands had clenched into a fist. Daniel went ahead to state them without looking in the paper, showing that he had properly planned them. Number 1, you shall not wear any cleavage-bearing tops, spaghetti straps, back-bearing straps, fishnets, and pants. Your skirt must be over your knees and should be accompanied by stockings to limit exposure to your legs. You should not lead men into temptation. Number 2, no sexual intercourse between us until we get married. We should have a healthy relationship until then. Neither shall you have one with another person while we're together. Number 3, you shall not touch a man. This world lately has become corrupted, but that doesn't mean we should be the same. In one word, communication with men would be limited and shall be carried out modestly. In the same way, you should not be found alone with a man in a remote place that can raise suspicions about sexual intercourse. I've agreed to set up the 15-minute meeting and will set you up for success. Number 4, ill-mannered conversation is not permitted in our relationship. Our mouths are designed for greater and positive things. Neither shall you propose sexual intercourse to me. 8. Number 5. You shall make out time in your schedule to join me in visiting the temple every last day of the month. It is essential to keep our faith alive. Number 6. No lying between us. I expect 100% honesty in our relationship. When you lie, you should rectify your speech and not insist you're right. Number 7. You should love all humanity. That means killing animals for sports and wearing their furs to show off extravagant lifestyles is not respectful. Omitted. In one word, you should not wear authentic furs for the duration of our relationship and marriage. More evidence for the chances of divorce would be required. Number 8. No drinking of alcohol. You should not consume alcohol or other intoxicating substances that are likely to modify the ordinary structure of the mind or intoxicate the body. Number 9. Be respectful to older people and be the first to greet them on the way. Possess a rightful attitude and help them out, even if you're in a difficult position. You shall not witness violence and shall be meek in your doing. Grace is given to the humble. Now, what do you say to this? Daniel was done with his 10 commandments. Song Yen stared at him. She blinked once, twice at him, and burst into laughter. She laughed so hard that tears slipped from her eyes, which she wiped away while still laughing. Daniel stared at her in confusion. What is funny about my question? Song Yen suddenly stopped laughing and stared at him hard. What is funny about my question? She jerked up to her feet immediately and shouted at him. I should follow your rules? What are you, Jesus? Buddha? Am I preparing to be a monk? However, Daniel didn't respond in anger and spoke softly in return. Discipline is for the sake of restraint. Restraint for the sake of freedom from remorse. Freedom from remorse for the sake of joy. Joy for the sake of rapture. Sektor. Rapture for the sake of tranquility. Tranquility for the sake of pleasure. Pleasure for the sake of concentration. Concentration for the sake of knowledge and vision of things as they are. Knowledge and vision of things as they are, for the sake of disenchantment. Disenchantment for the sake of release. Release for the sake of knowledge and vision of release. Knowledge and vision of release. For the sake of total unbinding without clinging. What the heck? Song Yen was dumbfounded after Daniel finished his speech. What was going on here? She nearly made the mistake of marrying a madman? Without wasting time, Song Yen began to pack her things immediately. She had to get out of here. The young master of the Kang family was crazy. Her mother almost matched her with a madman. Of course, her actions didn't go unnoticed by Daniel, who stood up in confusion, wondering what she was doing. Are you going somewhere? He touched her hand at the same moment Song Yen reached for her purse. Ah! Song Yen screamed, startled by this sudden move, and her first reaction was to grab the glass of water by her side and splashed him in the face. Other people in the restaurant who had been noticing their drama instantly pulled out their cameras and began to capture the moment. They probably thought it was a young man getting rejected by his crush and couldn't wait to spread the news on social media. However, one of them, who was a reporter in their midst, recognized him and began to alert the others. Kang Daniel was always in the headlines. This was the story they couldn't miss. Daniel gasped upon feeling the cold, wet sensation on his face. What just happened? He still had a hard time grasping why Song Yen looked so frightened. Clasping his hand, he waited for them to return to him slowly, wishing he'd been in reality rather than in dreamland. Songyan, on the other word, was stunned after she poured the water on him, but there was no time to waste. "Oh, God, I'm so sorry," she apologized and took off as if the devil was on her heels. But no sooner had he left than a smile crossed Daniel's lips. He couldn't believe another woman fell for that. In this life, he can't get married. 13. Marin thought, he might not longer be a monk, but that doesn't mean he has forgotten his ways. In this life, he would remain celibate forever. Chapter 6. Single till date. Bounendo! Young Chul, his secretary, hurried into the restaurant hardly minutes after he witnessed Song Yen step out in fury. Their president must have done it again. He couldn't remember the number of girls that left in the Biao Bay manor. However, his eyes widened in alarm when he saw the president, wet from the hair, with the water dripping down to his suit, while he used his handkerchief to wipe himself. "Egu, President!" Young Chul almost fell to the ground at the scene. It was his fault. He should have been here. If the chairwoman heard that her grandson was injured in the slightest bit, she would have his head cut off. Young Chul was stressed out. This secretarial work would kill him faster than he thought. But no, he doesn't want to die yet. He hadn't even married and given birth to kids. How would he get married when Daniel Kang was tormenting his life? The man would call him at weird hours for questions that left him baffled. One time, young Chul was on a date with his girlfriend when Daniel called on the phone asking how he could reset humanity's mindset and make them love again. How could they kill one another like this? Don't they know that to love is benevolence? "Did you see the news?" Daniel had called to ask in the middle of his date. No, yes, President," young Chul quickly answered with a lie when he had no idea of the news. If he had said no, the president would do him the favor of recalling the news in detail, which he doesn't need at the moment. Young Chul was in a dilemma. He stared at their steak dinner that was getting cold by the minutes, and his girlfriend, who was now giving him a glare. His girlfriend has not hesitated to show her dislike for his job multiple times. How can his son kill his mother over 1,000 won? Daniel Kang argued. "I'm sorry, President, but that happens," he answered, hoping the president would end the call. "Boo-hoo," his girlfriend's stare was about to vaporize him on the spot. "We have to stop it?" Young Chul had a sudden foreboding that the president was about to do something stupid. Chul, how much is my asset?" "Huh?" He gulped. "Why do you ask, President? If we could share 1,000 won to the lower class of this country, it would stop another person from killing for money, right?" "No, President!" Young Chul shouted, jerking up from his seat and startling both his girlfriend and the others having their meal in the restaurant. "President, please don't do anything reckless for now. I'll be there." Young Chul knew the chairwoman would definitely end his life if something like that happened. How could he be thinking of selling off his assets to support the lower masses? Whether he helped out or not, crime like that would continue to pop up because that was human nature. God, this man would be the death of him. "Where are you going?" His girlfriend frowned the moment she saw him, gathering his things. "I'm sorry, Navari, but I have a serious problem to settle with the president right now. Can we reschedule for another day?" "This is the third time we rescheduled our date already, or don't you remember?" she asked sternly, her arms crossed across her chest. Young Chul scratched the back of his head. He was really in a tight position right now. After a few seconds, he said gently, "Exercise is a relief." "Nari," he called her, with a sweet voice, leaning towards her as he tried to convince her. I promise you that I will make it up to you this time. Next time we would move to a deserted island with no cell reception and enjoy our date all we want, huh? He promised her. "1," he said. "What about after that date? Would we have to move to a desert with no cell reception to have the next one?" she asked boldly, her brows arched. "What?" Nari sighed. "I'm sorry, young Chul, but I don't think I have the patience to deal with this anymore. Right now, you'd have to choose. What? Between your job and I, who is more important?" What? And of course, he chose his job. As much as his job was troubling, it paid well, and it was hard to find another like it. And that was how young Chur became single up to date. "Stop making a scene, it's not that much," Daniel told him, still wiping himself. Young Chul then offered him a new handkerchief which he used to clean the remaining wetness from his hair. "Is the car ready?" "Yeah." "Let's go then." Daniel stood up on his feet and left. Young Chul followed him from behind and couldn't help but take him in. This young president of his was very handsome and charismatic, if only he was normal. The restaurant is a high-rise building with a great view across town, hence Kong Daniel and his secretary had to get into the elevator to go down. They hardly stepped in when young Chul discovered his zipper was open. His face flushed in shame immediately. How could he have been walking around with an open zipper? Unfortunately, Daniel, who noticed his discomfort, asked him, "What is it?" Young Chule laughed awkwardly, trying to close it. "The reason I was a bit late was because I was taking care of my business. In my haste to come over, I must have forgotten to do my zipper properly." He was saying when he frowned, "I think my zipper is stuck." Daniel looked down. "Let me see." Young Chul shrank away at once upon the request. Another thing about the president, he was annoyingly kind. Daniel rolled his eyes. "Come on, stop being shy and let me have a look at that before you go out and be labeled a pervert." He already had an idea how this world works. "But, President, you don't have to." Young Chul was very uncomfortable with this and tried to squirm away. However, Daniel suddenly pinned him to the wall of the elevator. Breathing down on his face, he said, "I need to see." At that moment, young Chul began to question the president's sexual orientation.